The following podcast takes you on a journey into the ridiculous minds of Julie and Dianna, where you will hear lots of profanity and plenty of spoilers. You've been warned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Dianna.
And I'm Julie.
And this episode, we're going to be talking about mid-season finale, Whoop Whoop, which aired last night. The season 2, episode 7. Title of episode is Shiva or Shiva. We don't know. Are we talking about the Hindu god? Are we talking about the Jewish period of mourning? We don't know.
We have no idea.
We don't know. But
they kind of both fit.
They do both fit. There's a period of this episode. This covers a period of mourning.
Yep.
There's also what did it say? Shiva is the god, the
destroyer.
The destroyer. So the destroyer
now,
of worlds.
I'm not Hindu. I don't practice any
I can
of
attest.
that. So
Julie's not Hindu.
So please, anybody, correct us if we are wrong. We just did a quick Google search.
Dude,
that is what we found.
We're flying by the seat of our pants on a Wikipedia page. That's all we're saying. So anyway, God, what a great episode. First impressions from last night.
So they really hit the ground running with this one. And I said that the last time I said that, I believe, was the season premiere of this season, because it just, and you know what? Chris Hardwick, I think, said it best on The Talking Dead. The season premiere started with fire, and then the mid-season finale ended with fire.
That's right.
And I think that was really great. They kind of bookended it.
Yeah.
And I think that's neat. So yeah, lots of things happened in this episode. Our group is a little split up.
Mm-hmm.
Fire, craziness, delusions.
Well, Shiva, she does bring the destruction, so we would expect nothing less.
Yes.
Yeah. So my first impression is the same. I thought they really they revved it up a lot of notches. I mean, it starts off right away on a high point, sort of keeps that momentum going for almost the whole episode. I was so tense. Not as tense as I was watching Game of Thrones, but that's another story. But anyway.
Dianna had a really good night last night.
I was up really late. Thanks a lot for having Talking Dead be so damn late. I was up till midnight.
So
anyway.
I know I'm going to hear a bunch of boos from this, but I don't watch Game of Thrones. I have not watched an episode.
Ooh.
I know. I'm sorry.
Don't worry. She got me on Walking Dead. I'll get her on Game of Thrones.
It'll happen.
Don't you worry. It'll happen
later. It's
going
to have to.
Yeah.
So Dianna had a pretty good night last night. She said there was a really great episode of Game of Thrones and then really great episode of Fear the Walking Dead.
And I was up until all hours of the night trying to watch Talking Dead because it was on too late. Boo-hoo.
Damn
AMC,
Preacher.
thanks a lot. Anyway.
And you know what?
We're bitching.
My husband wanted to watch Preacher, and I gotta say, I don't know what the fuck they're doing in that show.
They did say though that it's
kind of a world where anything can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And it really is. Like, we're about halfway through it, and I look at James, I'm like, the fuck is happening in this show right now? I'm so confused. And he goes, I kind of know what's happening. And I put down a couple bullet points. He goes, yeah, pretty much. I'm like, still doesn't make sense.
I love that there's a character who's literally, his name is Arseface, and he's got the pucker face. He totally looks like a butthole.
He's actually super cute in the show.
I don't know anything about him.
I don't know. Obviously, he did something really bad, and he doesn't think God will forgive him.
Interesting.
And I'm assuming that's why his face looks the way it does.
Yeah.
But he's like, I used to talk to God all the time, and he used to respond, and now he doesn't. And it was really sad. I'm like, poor arse face.
Or butt face.
But that's all we're going to talk about,
okay.
Preacher.
Anyway, we digress. Anyway, so to get into...
Yeah, we're gonna jump in here. So the episode begins with kind of a first-person shot walking through the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
And, I immediately am like, oh, this has to be Daniel's flash.
Yeah, finally.
So we're in the jungle, and we actually, it's real quick. We're in the jungle. We see a boy. There's bodies in the river. And then Daniel wakes up. He hears the gunshot. He wakes up. And then we see this little sneak peek scene that we had seen throughout the week coming through. And Daniel immediately jumps out of bed, grabs Ophelia. They start running. And Ophelia's kind of dragging ass behind. And then her face starts peeling. And then Daniel wakes up again. So a little dream inside a dream there.
Yeah, exactly. Wakes up to a gunshot again.
So those suck. And there's a bunch of commotion going on. He looks over at Ophelia's bed, and she's not there. So everyone goes into Thomas's room because obviously we remember from the last episode.
Yeah, that's where the sound came from.
Strand just gave Thomas mercy, didn't let him come back.
Mm-hmm.
The crowd is gathering because that's not what you do in this house, apparently.
Yeah.
And Travis immediately sees that Chris isn't in the room and takes off. He leaves. Celia is throwing a fit, yelling at Strand, smacks him pretty good. Maddie tries to calm her down, and then she mentions that, Thomas is her son again. We talked about that last episode, too.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Daniel. He's outside looking for Ophelia, finds her, and is just so happy, completely relieved that he found her and she's okay. That dream really got to him.
Yeah, and he hugs her too, which was like for me, I was like, whoa,
Yeah, because he's not very affectionate kind of guy like that. So, and then we're to Travis. He's looking for Chris still. Finds Alicia. She refuses to help him.
She's like, and by the way,
and then kind of drops a bomb on him about the knife in the bedroom, and I don't think Travis immediately believes because he's like just stop it, and she's like, you think I'm lying? I'm not.
Yeah, he's like, I don't think Chris would ever hurt you. And she's like, do you think I'm lying? Because clearly if someone's standing around with a knife, your intentions are...
He was standing over me. And she says he was standing over me with a knife. And he wasn't standing over you, Alicia. He was standing over your mom, actually, on the other side of the bed. But it's okay. In the moment, I'm sure it felt very threatening. And
considering the other actions of the day, right.
Exactly.
What else would you
she
think?
Felt very threatened. So Travis then ends up taking off after Alicia... They get into that little argument. So then we cut back to Thomas's room. Celia is still really pissed off, calls Thomas her son again, and Strand says, he's not your son.
Yeah, which she's not a fan of when he says that. She reacts pretty big.
Things just kind of escalate even more from there. And Nick tries to calm her down.
Yep.
She's not having it. She's not having any of it. Tells them they can all get up next sundown. Get out. Well, and Strand's sitting there arguing like, I want to bury him. I need to bury him.
Yeah.
That's what he wants to do. And that's what he gets now, an empty grave, just like your empty soul and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly what you have to offer him, which is an empty hole in the ground and dirt, which is all you can offer
Right.
him. So
she agrees to it, but then says, then you all leave.
Yeah, exactly.
So what an interesting scene, right? So we were kind of last week we talked about Celia and where she stands in this kind of household, right?
Right, what her role is.
Right.
Really, yeah.
And then Strand straight up calls her out on it. You're not his mother.
Yeah.
He wasn't your son.
Exactly.
So, and we find out later on exactly what her role is. But at that moment, my brain is like, the hell is going on with this lady?
Right.
And she's so pissed. Well, how does she have any authority to kick anyone out? Like, this isn't her house. It has to be Thomas's house.
Right.
So, but what a very interesting scene, though. She really is wrapped up on this. They don't die when they come back.
Right.
They're not dead. She doesn't think that they're dead.
No, she thinks that they're something else.
Yeah, this is what happens afterwards.
New thing. Yeah.
So she's very, very upset about this, and the crowd that kind of gathered also, like the whole household was there watching everything. And Strand looks so torn up. He wasn't really talking much, and Strand's a total talker, right? Like he will talk his way out of anything, and he really wasn't saying anything to her.
Yeah.
And then when Nick jumps in to kind of make peace, because he doesn't want to see any of this happening, and he kind of owes a lot to Strand. Strand saved his life.
Yeah. He
was about to be, in season 1, they were going to take him out of that cage and put him down.
Yeah.
Because he had a fever, because he was withdrawing. So Strand saves him. So Nick kind of has this, I need to keep peace here. Plus, he also has this bond to Celia now, and he just doesn't like what's going on. And so he jumps in and doesn't help. And even two, she has such a bond with Nick. She really likes Nick, and
Yeah.
she's just like, no, you can all leave now.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting how when it was showing, it was two scenes kind of. It's going to be rough when we go through this like sort of like recapping and discussion of scenes.
Oh, it bounces so bad.
It bounces back and forth, back and forth. So bear with us. We're going to try and not make it as give you like a concussion from going back and forth. No whiplash.
Whiplash.
But this was two different scenes that sort of like had a couple other tiny scenes in between it. But in the first scene when we first see Celia there, and Nick actually steps in when she's really upset, and he's like, I'm really sorry, and I wish there was something I could say, and we're so sorry for your loss, and she like looks at him and smiles, and still has that connection with him. But then she becomes escalated, so angry after he's not your son, which was just a big change from like Nick was acknowledging the importance that Thomas was in her life and saying, he didn't say son, but he acknowledged, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Right.
This is your loss. And then the next jump, she's so upset that when the scene plays out, she literally she says, I want you all gone before the next sundown, and she looks Nick right in the face and she says, all of you. So she's including him, which is just such a
stab at him. I'm sure at him he felt. Well, we'll get into Nick. Let's continue, and then we'll get into Nick a little later.
So anyway, so we jump away from there, and we jump to Travis's looking for Chris. He sees him kind of far off in the field in the distance, and calls him. He turns, whatever.
And runs.
And then he runs. And tiny side note, which we won't really have another opportunity to really kind of talk about it, but I guess apparently he decided to do this with no shoes on.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest
dumb
move ever. But that's all we're going to say about it. Travis,
and we don't notice at that moment either.
No,
but
it's
then
not obvious.
Thinking back at it, you realize that he starts running through that field of vines and shit.
Yeah.
With just socks on.
I don't want to think about that. So what's interesting is, so he does take off after him, but they made a point of showing Nick was watching that from the window, which I thought was kind of interesting. I'm not sure why that was placed there. There's a lot of different reasons for. I feel like Nick has become kind of like this observer of things, but I just thought that was interesting. Made a note of that. So we've made a jump to, it's now daybreak, the sun's come up, and there's a really interesting scene where Daniel is he's observing all these other small groups of people, residents of the ranch, and, he can see them, 2 or 3 people off in the distance, and he thinks they're looking and talking about him. Mm-hmm. And he sees another group of people and he thinks they're talking about him. And he's you can feel this sort of paranoia set in.
Yep.
And then while he's watching, he's sort of like hidden under a tree and whatever. And he's looking all around kind of furtively. And he pulls out of his pocket, he's got a homemade shiv.
Yeah, pretty much.
Shiva. He's going to be the destroyer of your worlds. And he pulls out like this homemade shiv. It's literally just like
metal.
A straight razor of some kind or a piece of metal.
And he's just
sharpening it on the rock. And he's doing that. And he's still watching everybody around him. It's
when in
crazy.
reality they're probably not even looking at him.
No, it's definitely
all
a paranoia.
upset about Thomas.
Yeah. So they're like looking at Thomas.
But he's now drawing attention because of his paranoid state he's in.
And everybody's outside because actually, as a kind of a side note, Strand had started to dig the grave. Yep. So people are sort of gathering in tiny groups and sort of interspersed around and are observing that.
Yep.
And since Daniel's kind of part of that group, you can see them sort of look over, look back to Strand, look over, look back to Strand. And you're right. They probably were just thinking, oh, who are these people? And, they've already brought death and destruction and whatever.
They've already brought terrible stuff.
Right. But Daniel's like, oh, my God, they're coming to get me. They're coming to take me away. And so we jump back to Travis. He's sort of he's still looking around. He's trying to find Chris. And he comes upon this walker that is up against a fence, and there's a knife in the head. And he pulls out the knife and keeps it for himself. And he notices that there's a holster for a gun and the gun is missing. Yep. And then it cuts right to, it shows Chris kind of, running away, like kind of hiding and trying to slip away, and he's got that gun in his hand. So great, he's graduated to more firepower.
Yay!
Yay! Unstable and has a more deadly weapon. Yay! Then we jump. Maddie comes upon Alicia and Nick. It looked like they were sunbathing.
Yeah,
Hilarious.
I know. They're just kind of chilling.
Yeah,
like,
whatever. And she starts telling him, we've got to start quietly gathering supplies. They're
grab
kicking us
anything
out.
you can.
Get anything you can. Ask for whatever you can get. And
try
Nick,
not to make yourself too known about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Though.
Be kind of start now and get as much as you can. And in this conversation, Nick offers to just talk to Celia because they've got this relationship, and Maddie immediately, bristles right up and is like, I do not want you to do that. She is not our friend. Don't do that.
She's dangerous.
She
literally says.
Yeah, she literally says, stay away.
Yep.
So, of course, we know he's not going to do that. And then we, again, cut right back to Travis, and he's still looking around, and then he comes upon this kind of ramshackle house. There's a walker outside that sort of looks like he fell off the swing.
Yeah.
So, obviously, walkers bad at swimming, bad at walking on the sand, and they're not good on swing sets. Duly noted. So he comes upon this house. He goes inside, and there's
he hears a noise inside. That's the whole reason he goes in.
Okay.
He heard a noise inside, so he figured he'd walk in.
Got to investigate because he's still just, it looks pretty abandoned.
Right.
But he's just assuming that, Chris is hiding out somewhere, hunkered down somewhere. So he goes in, and he's looking around, and this man jumps out. And then it's pretty hilarious for half a second because Travis is like, I'm looking for my son. And the other guy's like, I don't speak English. And they're like, I'm looking for my son. It's like, yo no sé. And as a side note, Julie and I made a discovery today when we were talking about how hard it was for us to sort of write notes while we were doing it. Because there was so much Spanish that was spoken that and they had all the subtitles. So usually when there's conversation going on, we can, you can drop your eyes a little, write a couple of notes down for the podcast. But you can't do it when you need to be reading what's going on the screen.
I don't speak any Spanish. I don't understand any of it, so I have to read those subtitles.
Right. I understand a little, muy pequeño, very little, but not enough to be able to not watch while the words are coming up on the screen. So anyway, so this man, he doesn't speak English. They're sort of standing and looking at each other, and I think Travis even tried the thing where it's like, I'm looking for my son, because speaking louder makes it more obvious. So anyway, so he's trying to make himself understood. The guy clearly wants Travis to go. Travis is like, and then he needs to sit. He needs to sit because his feet hurt.
Of course
he's really trying to just, I'm in pain. And then he peels off the sock.
No.
Peels off the bloody sock.
It's so gross.
Oh, my God.
I literally yelled at my TV screen. I said, oh, Travis, no.
Oh, it was gross. It was totally gross. And so I think the man understands that at this point that Travis is looking for somebody.
And he's
hurt. But just enough where he's just, he needs to sit for a few minutes. So he brings him a glass of water.
Here's some water.
He's like, I know your feet are dying. Here, have some water.
Here.
This will help you. We jump back to Nick shows up at the ranch, and he's got Lewis with him, zombie Lewis. So you have to assume
he's covered in blood.
Yeah, and he's covered in blood.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to assume that they didn't offload any of those bodies. So you've got to assume that he went all the way back into town and then went back onto the boat to get Lewis and then brought him out.
Yeah, because I don't really see Louis being able to get off that boat as a walker, right?
Yeah.
Stairs and
I mean, and maybe he did. Maybe he
was
swam
just
to shore. And you've got to assume that the Abigail is probably docked right next to wherever that church scene was happening, and there's got to be some kind of bay or whatever.
In that episode, they were all walking, and by the time they got to the church, I think Alicia said how much further, and Tran said we're getting close now.
Yeah.
So they walked for a little bit from the boat to the church, but I mean, Nick still had to walk probably a good
few miles at least. Yeah. Well. Anyway, he did it. We'll talk about plausibility later. I have some question marks. So he comes back and he gives Lewis to Celia. Mm-hmm. And she thinks about it, but she just sort of begrudgingly is like, all right, fine, your family can stay, but Strand still has to go because he's terrible and I hate him. So we jump to Daniel comes up upon Strand and he's still digging the grave.
Don't bury him here.
It's the longest. This is the longest hole it took to dig in the entire world.
Yeah, Nick was able to walk all the way wherever and back with a walker, and Strand still hasn't gotten a hole dug.
I mean, I get it. Drag dirt, whatever. I've dug a hole, for pets, but it's like, what are you going to whatever. Anyway, so he's still digging. So Daniel comes up and he doesn't want him to bury Thomas. He keeps pleading with him to not bury Thomas. And his thing that he keeps coming back to is he keeps saying that this land is unholy.
It's unholy.
And he doesn't back it up. He's just, they don't believe. They've got different beliefs. He's just like, it's unholy. He says that Thomas won't rest. He said that.
And that he'll come back and he won't be the same.
Yeah.
Because Daniel's obviously being haunted right now by his own dead, right? And I'm sure he didn't bury all of them, and they're coming back to haunt him, and he doesn't want that to happen to Strand.
Exactly.
So it really, I think it is a true warning. Don't do that. It won't be good.
Exactly. So we jump from that moment to the aftermath of Nick coming back with Lewis is Boy is covered with blood and muck, so he's got to clean up. And Maddie brings him fresh clothes. Yay!
You know what's great about Nick constantly dousing himself in walker blood? What? He takes a shower afterwards. I know. Seriously.
He's probably the only one who's freshly clean all the time.
Right. And now, granted, he didn't use soap. He just rinses. But he's still rinsing.
Yeah.
I don't know how long we probably watched Nick not take any sort of a shower. He was so gross by the end of season 1.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he had to get into the water that he had any water on him. So the more he puts walker blood on him, the more he rinses off. So,
right.
Hey,
true. So
I'll take what I can get.
Nick, clean. Thumbs up. Maddie brings him fresh clothes, and then this starts a whole conversation. She doesn't understand. He's so different now. The way he reacts to the dead and his whole, how he's carrying himself, his whole disposition, it's changed. She's noticed. And it's not just his relationship with Celia. I think she really just sees a big change. Excuse me. And Nick is, in turn, obviously, he's bristling because he doesn't understand why she doesn't get it. And also, he just secured their ability to stay there, and there's no thanks for putting it. But she keeps talking about you keep putting yourself at risk, and you keep putting yourselves in these situations.
And then he brings up, you're talking
yeah, but I did that, and now we get to stay, and
And he even mentions you're talking like I'm using it again, because I'm sure a mother having to deal with this, type of not so much attitude, but behaviors from him.
Well, and they fall into patterns, especially someone who has an addictive personality falls into those.
And Maddie has become so defensive immediately on anything that he does because of his behavior and the things that he has done to them in general, that he starts showing weird signs of things, and she automatically kind of starts interrogating him.
Exactly.
And he doesn't like that. He's being reminded of when he would use, and he did something which he thought was good for them for once. Yeah. And Maddie is not giving the kind of emotion and reaction that I think he was hoping for.
Yeah, definitely. It's really showing. It's a really great scene that really highlights how their relationship has changed, and it's really fractured a lot.
Very much.
There were little bits and pieces where it's sort of been leading to this, but this was she's just unbelievably, she just doesn't understand him. No. She really doesn't. And of course, he's coming from a different place of
she's so scared with him too. He has given her so many reasons to be so afraid all the time. She's in a constant state of fear around him anymore.
Right.
But so from that scene, we move to Daniel and Ophelia. So Daniel starts pulling Ophelia, saying, "You need to come with me. We need to go." And she's like, "But why?" And he goes, "Your mother. She's out front. She's at the gate. She's waiting for us." And So she starts to kind of pull back like, oh, no, you're really losing it. And some of the other people there are starting to notice that he's lost it. They're kind of creating a bit of a scene. And the ranch people come up and they pretty much go to take Daniel, and he fights back. He takes that piece of sharpened metal out, slashes at this guy.
Yeah.
And they get a couple hits in, and they take him away and pull Ophelia away so that she can't try to help him or anything or go after him.
What's interesting is in that scene, I didn't understand at first. I didn't really see the people like notice Daniel's behavior. It just all of a sudden it ramped up so quickly. I was like, why were they going after them? And then afterwards I realized that he must have been still feeling
he's been acting paranoid the entire
paranoid.
time. He's walking around like someone's following him. So that would probably raise a couple of red flags.
And you're seeing that paranoia totally from his point of view. So it's
the ranch people probably wouldn't trust them at the moment, right? Because they've brought kind of a bit of chaos into their lives right now. So they're all kind of keeping an eye on Daniel, and they're noticing this.
Right.
So then we move over to Maddie. She goes to talk to Strand. She tells him she's really sorry, and they kind of have this little conversation. I don't want to talk about it too long, but it's very interesting how she mentions. I can't actually remember what Maddie says, but Strand says, "Don't mistake my obligation as a friendship," pretty much.
Wasn't she really trying to say, didn't she have like a whole thing where she was like, I wish there was something I could say, like, I wish I could say something more than just sorry or whatever.
Yeah. She was trying to be a friend.
Uh-huh.
And he kind of nipped that right in the butt. Mm-hmm. No, we're not friends. But then from there goes into...
Yeah, but do you want to hang out?
Come with?
Want to come with me? And I love how I know. Do you want to hang out? Check yes, check no. And I love how they filmed that so that he asks the question while his back is to her. So he doesn't see her reaction. He doesn't see her go, I don't want to spend time with you anymore. You're a pain in my ass.
Well, and then she declines. Mm-hmm. So we move to Travis. He's still in this house with this guy who doesn't speak English. He's finally about to leave when he realizes there is a book in English on the couch.
Right.
So...
He's like, are you sure you don't speak English?
Yeah. And the guy, they kind of lean in real close, and he's like, he told me that if I don't get you to leave, he will hurt my boy.
He'll kill my boy.
Yeah. So Travis isn't going to leave now.
Of course not.
He attacks this guy, not attacks him, but he pushes him out of the way and gets to the room because he heard a noise. He's like, are you sure you're alone here? And stuff like that.
Yeah. And they show like the light from underneath the door that there's movement in that room. Yeah.
So he bursts in. And Chris is not only holding the man's son hostage, but is pointing a gun right at Travis.
Yeah.
Damn it, Chris. So then we move over to Celia. She's giving this eulogy pretty much. And we finally get to put all these puzzle pieces that we have together.
Her relationship, how does she fit in?
Yep. Yeah. So she's giving this speech about Thomas and about how his parents were never around. And she says, I didn't bear him, but I treated him like he was my own. Something along those lines.
It may not have come from me, but he was definitely my son.
Right.
Yeah.
So and at that moment, of course, this is another scene where she's speaking all in Spanish. So I can't write anything down.
I have
to watch the entire scene. But all I remember, not all I remember, but I distinctly remember me going, oh, the light bulb just kept going off in my head.
Which is good because we thought that was a good possibility.
Yeah.
And it was confirmed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So right after she's done and everyone drops the handful of dirt into the grave, she goes up to Strand and says, you got to go. And Strand counters with, I'm not done here. He still needs to actually bury him. And he's committed. He's going to bury Thomas.
Yeah. And you can see that the sun is kind of setting. It's getting a little orange, so the sun's getting ready to set, but it's not sundown yet. So he's really stretching that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she fights it a little bit. She just kind of lets it go.
Yeah.
Then Ophelia goes up to Ophelia and Celia, and asks where her father is. Celia will not allow Ophelia to see him because he was violent.
Yeah.
He cut the guy. She tries to argue that he's not a bad man.
Yeah.
But there's too many problems, and Celia doesn't want to even talk about it.
Exactly.
So, and she explains to she asks, how long has your father been having problems, pretty much.
Yeah.
And Ophelia's not answering that question. She doesn't trust Celia enough to, and that's pretty much where they leave it. Ophelia doesn't want to give her any information, so she just kind of walks away from that. And then we get back to Chris and Travis. When I was like waiting for him, like, oh Jesus. So Chris mentions how everyone's been looking at him like he's a monster, and Travis, Clarity, says, "Look at the boy you're holding," and the boy is terrified.
Yeah.
And I think it was about to click with Chris. And before he could do anything, Travis smacks that gun out of his hand, and Chris takes off. So Travis, in all of his hurt feet glory,
runs,
takes off after him, tackles him in this gravel. And he's on top of him. He's like kind of choking him out. And Chris he has that knife that was left in the walker's head that Travis had taken, takes that knife and goes to stab his father. Travis gets the knife out of his hand, and their fight is over. And Chris, Travis says, he's fine. It's all finally clicking. He sees this. He sees what everyone else has been seeing, what he's been in denial about.
Right.
He mentions, I should have helped you. And then Chris says, I'm no good.
Ugh.
What a scene. Seriously, when he grabbed that knife out of Travis's belt and took a swipe at him, I thought he was going to get Travis, because I didn't think Travis was going to see it actually coming, because he was in such denial about Chris.
Right.
That he probably, even with the gun, I don't think Travis even believed that Chris was going to pull that trigger.
Right. It was more like a means to an end as opposed to I would actually behave this way.
Right, exactly. But then, I didn't expect him to grab that knife. And I actually said, I gasped, because I really thought Travis was done. I thought he was going to get a good gash in him. But Travis was quick. He was real quick.
Yeah.
The man, he does a good headbutt. He can
I know, what's his backstory, Dianna?
Right? He's really a jack of all trades. He can do everything. But no, really great scene that Travis is finally realizing that his son has a problem. He's been so concerned about everything else that's going on. And honestly, I can't fully blame Travis for being so blind by
not
for
so
sure
much
blind, but he's been so distracted.
And you always want to think the best of your children.
Right.
You don't, and it's definitely the place of the most denial. I mean, look at Maddie and Nick. She doesn't want to see that Celia creates this other place for Nick, but she's you know what I mean. So it's another area of denial.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that scene. I really enjoyed watching Travis, it finally clicking with him and him seeing it, and Chris finally getting the attention he needed.
Yeah, and it's a good thing it did click, because would he have gone that far? Would he have, I guess the question is he still savable? We can still discuss that. Is he still savable, mostly because he's acting this way because he says people look at me like I'm a monster. So can you show him that the easiest way to have people not look at you like a monster is to not act like a monster, not do these scary things? So can he learn that and have that as like a takeaway, or is it too late? Is he just going to keep reacting that way? We don't know.
Right.
So we jump from there to now we see where Daniel is being held, and he's tied up. He's in some basement somewhere, and Celia comes up and she tries to feed him. He's not interested in her pozole, which there's something wrong with him, because if you get a chance for pozole, man, you take it. So she starts interrogating him, asking him questions about his past, about these other deaths, these other things that are, bothering him. And while she's talking and he would answer, there's another voice. Like there's a third voice that's going on throughout this whole conversation.
Again, all in Spanish.
Right.
All in Spanish. Although Daniel didn't like to respond in Spanish, he kept responding in English, but the voice he was hearing and Celia kept speaking in
Spanish. And you're like, oh my God, I'm trying to write notes down, people. Don't you understand?
Damn it.
So the voice, after a couple of times of hearing the voice, it started to sound female. And in my head, I was like, I wonder if this is his wife. And I wrote that down. And then, Celia keeps talking to him about his past and the dead that are a part of him.
Yep.
And she says that he fears the dead that he has killed before, that, this past that he has. So it's not these current dead that are his fear, which we had that conversation before when she was like, why are you afraid of the dead?
Right.
You need to let that go. She was talking about these dead people that, he had some kind of past as a mercenary, and, we'll get into more detail on that. But it's, she's tapping into that and asking those questions. And at the same time, Griselda, his wife, Daniel's wife, is answering these questions back. She's putting in like her 2 cents, and then finally she appears. Celia essentially wants him to confess because she thinks that that's his
That'll
way.
help him.
That'll
Right.
be his way to help and to get, I guess release those dead that are a part of him. So.
Right.
Then we go from that scene over to Nick, who obviously is the fastest walker known to man. He comes upon Travis.
He was panting. He may have been running.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get a backstory where Nick ran track.
Or something.
Who knows? What? I'm listen. Healthy dose of skepticism. That's all. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying he's done a lot of running and walking. And I didn't see him have one meal today. Anyway, so he comes up upon Travis. He had actually left out of the ranch to go look for Travis and Chris. Plus, previously when they were trying to say, we can't leave, Maddie's like, we can't leave until Travis comes back. We can't leave until
Nick
Travis comes back.
And Nick does mention earlier on in the episode that he can go and find him because he tells, and in that scene that we talked about, he tells his mom, I can walk among them.
Yeah.
So he offers to go and find Travis for her.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. That's what sparked the entire conversation of his actions and everything he's been doing is weirding her out.
Yeah, exactly. So he comes upon them and he's, wait, are you guys coming? Let's go. We've got to go. And Travis says he can't. He said that Chris needs his father.
Yeah.
And he tells Nick to say to Maddie that he never saw them.
Yep.
That based on, he's, my son needs me. And he says that Chris, as he is, he can't come back, not now.
Yeah.
So Travis clearly needs to be doing some, crazy son intervention.
Some good parenting.
Yeah. And then we jump back over.
It could have been stopped if he had just slapped Chris like a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, maybe.
It would have just stopped it.
Get it together, kid, would you? I mean, seriously.
I'm kidding.
No, we're not advocating child.
Don't
whatever.
abuse your children,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, exactly. But, do recognize when they're becoming, psychotic.
Yeah.
So we jump back to the ranch. Maddie comes up to Celia. She tells her she's trying to plead Strand's case. She's telling her she's making a mistake. She tells them all about how, you're saving us. You're allowing us to stay. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Strand.
Wasn't for him.
Strand is the one that saved us.
Right.
He's the one that got us here. So she's trying really hard to make the hard sell. And they talk a little bit about Celia's connection with Nick. And then, Celia says, Nick believes, you need to believe. Like, this is, if you're going to stay, you need to respect how we feel here.
About the infected, which
Yeah.
is not what she calls them. She won't use that terminology.
Yeah,
with
she was
them.
our people. You have to respect our wishes about our people or whatever. And she says that they'll have to come to believe that stuff if they want to stay. And Maddie has like a little bit of a change. She's like, I really want to understand.
Right.
And Celia's like, well, come with me then. So we all know where they're heading. So then we jump right back to Daniel again. and now he's just Celia's obviously gone. She's with Maddie, so Daniel's just having full on conversation with Griselda. And what's great is they keep doing that shot of him with her image, and he's talking to her, but then it does that pan out where it shows the room and nobody's there. Clearly,
I like that too.
So Griselda's big beef, and she's got a good beef, is that he didn't bury her.
You didn't bury me.
Yeah, you didn't bury me. Like, yes, she did get the mercy kill, so she didn't turn, but she was not placed in. I mean, and if you're Catholic, if you're heavy duty Catholic, your remains need to be placed in consecrated ground.
Yep.
And so Griselda did not receive that burial. In fact, she probably, if you think about it, if you really want to think about it, she was given the mercy kill and she was left there. There was burning, but there was also walkers all over the place. So, was she lunch for somebody? Who knows?
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah. This is all Daniel's guilt getting to him.
Oh, God.
And I love, too, how he says, I looked. He did.
Yeah.
He did look. I mean, he couldn't look for long because they were.
Yeah,
they brought all those
all
walkers in, and they needed to get the fuck out.
Exactly. It's almost like he created this bad situation because it was his idea.
Right.
Brought all those walkers to the center to that army post so that they could get her out of there, and then it ended up biting him in the ass because he had to get out quickly, had to leave her body behind. So yeah, it's this whole scene was just. It was just so wonderfully done, and oh my God, Ruben Blades is he's like the MVP of this show. I'm telling you,
adorable.
And he really is. And I hope that everybody, even though it was on late, I hope everybody got a chance to finally watch the Talking Dead episode because he's on, and man, is he not funny? His insights. I mean, I typically will write down quotes from the show, from within the show, but I wrote down 5 quotes from Talking Dead, which doesn't typically happen. So within this scene where he's with Griselda, he's really. It's just this entire moment of him just unpacking all of this guilt and all of this, all of these demons, really. They're all demons that are inside him. And what we realize when they're talking is that the way they used to handle this was he had all of these things in his past that he was still atoning for. She was almost his confessor. He would tell Griselda everything. He'd repent to her, tell her all these terrible things. And she still loved him, so obviously he felt some sort of
that for him.
Yeah, she helped carry the load.
Yeah.
So now without her around, you've got to figure since he felt guilty, he had to leave her behind.
Yeah.
First of all, so take that guilt and now start multiplying it every single day since they left that detention center and had to leave her behind. And he's got all these triggers that have been happening. I got a little fierce today because everybody online is like, oh my God, Daniel went crazy overnight. He didn't go crazy overnight. You have to you've got to really dig and see it.
A lot of his craziness was very well hidden. He did a really good job hiding his craziness, but he's been going since the moment he had to torture the soldier in season 1, he started going.
Exactly. And it's and the thing is that Daniel's character is so well drawn out. A lot of times in scenes, Ruben isn't, having this big emotional arc or emotional moment, or there isn't a lot. It's so subtle. You really had to be paying attention to Ruben's portrayal since day one, and just this whole scene, and she literally, they get to that point where she's talking about how within the scene now we're current, and it's Griselda talking with Daniel, and they're talking back and forth where he's feeling bad, and he talks about I just keep thinking about that first person, and he's telling the story, and they show a little bit of the flashback when he shoots that first, and they show that river again, and one of the people there wasn't fully dead, and that's where the voice came in from before.
Take
the gun, Daniel. He takes it and he shoots this guy, and he calls that the first victim, and Griselda makes a great call where she's like, you were the first victim.
Yep.
So he just really internalizes that, and I mean, it's just.
And we talked a little bit earlier. We really try not to do too much talking about the show
because we want it to be
as genuine as possible
and spontaneous. Yeah.
But we did. I made a comment earlier about how Daniel's past really set him up to it. it hurt him and helped him for this new world.
Right.
It gave him so many tools that could be used to help him survive in this world, but it gave him such a burden to carry in this world, so much guilt for this world.
Right.
And it was very hard for him to balance the two of them.
Right. And before they had to, I mean, Griselda got hurt pretty early on. And when they took her away to that hospital, when Liza took her away, it was fairly early on.
Yeah.
But then if you take the amount of time from there to now that he hasn't had a person to unload his problems to, he hasn't had, and he just does not want to share with Ophelia.
Well, and how many things has he had to do to give him even more guilt?
Exactly. So it's these old things that are still, because he's got those triggers. He had the moment when they first came ashore, before going to the ranch with the church parishioners, that the little boy, and he just froze. And he did have the moments of pause, putting the
hood on,
putting the hood on, and hearing the take the gun. Those moments really just sort of like knocked him sideways. Like, what is going on? And he just, I think, until he really started having conversations with his wife, he didn't really realize until she's like, I used to tell me all that stuff, and now you don't have anyone to talk to. And yeah, it was so really well done. And
I agree. It was really nice to finally get some more insight on Daniel and to really figure out why he's so broken.
Yeah.
But from there, we so one of my favorite scenes in the entire episode.
It's probably everybody's favorite scene.
Celia decides to show Maddie the cage that she has
not surprising,
of walkers, because Maddie says, I want to understand. So she's like, okay, I'll make you understand. Let's go. So she unlocks it and she goes inside, and she has this really beautiful speech about, if your child was hungry, wouldn't you feed him? And if your child could not talk, would you not speak for him? And all this stuff. And so she's walking more and more into this cage, and these walkers, they got some food. They don't care about.
Yeah, they're not really interested in her off the bat. No.
And Maddie kind of takes just a couple steps in, and halfway through, Celia's speech just starts walking backwards. And before she started walking backwards, I said out loud, I'm like, just lock her in.
Yeah, I had that thought too. I was like, get her in there.
Just do it.
Shut the door.
So she starts taking these steps backwards. I'm like, okay, she's going to do it. And, Celia's still going on this. Is there nothing you wouldn't do for your child? And as she's closing the door, she's like, yes, there is nothing I wouldn't do for my child, and locks it. They make direct eye contact with each other. And she just walks away. Though then I start screaming at my screen, don't walk away. You don't know. She could get out.
Right. Right. Somebody, see, and that's the thing, too. Like, we talked about that. We didn't see her die. So did somebody come along a few minutes later and they're like, out? Oh, I've got keys.
There may have been another way out.
Yeah, we don't know.
You don't know.
Right.
She could be up on a rafter somewhere hiding. I have no freaking idea.
Yeah, it's a wine cellar. Maybe she's like, I'm sitting on top of wine barrels.
Yeah,
and,
you don't know.
So
from there, we get back to Daniel. Excuse me. This guy just, I don't know why this guy starts walking in. I'm assuming Daniel called for him, or he's just checking on him or whatever. But he comes and he unties one of Daniel's hands for him, and he says something. I knew you would eat sooner or later. Or Celia said you would eat sooner or later. So he unties his hand and gives him the pozole, and Daniel just headbutts this guy. Pozole goes everywhere.
Well, he drops the spoon or something.
Yeah, he
makes
the
it all like,
first.
It's such a show.
Yeah,
like,
I
dropped the spoon,
hand.
my hand's shaky.
Yeah.
And then it's when the guy bends down and he's in front of him. All he just needed was one good knock to knock him down.
Yep. So gets the guy down, and then he does this crazy backward spiral thingy with the chair to break it and get up. And this whole time, Griselda's talking to him the whole time.
Yeah.
He grabs the guy's lighter, and Griselda tells him to set her free. But then we cut to the ranchers, so outside again, and it's dark, and they're walking strand.
Yeah, now the sun's down. Yeah.
Sun's down. We haven't been outside in a little while because been doing a lot of things inside, so we weren't quite sure how long it's been. But sun's down now, it's dark, and they're escorting Strand off the property. And he goes without a fight, real calm, just walking, and they open the gate.
Classy.
Very classy. Classy Strand. And he walks out, and he turns around, and you see Alicia, pretty good distance in the background, and she just starts waving, and you see like the door covers his face, and then all you see is his hand waving.
Yeah, waving right back to her.
And it's kind of a cute scene between the two of them that Alicia was actually she wanted to say bye.
Yeah,
and I like that. And Strand didn't just.
Yeah, and there was another tiny scene, like teeny tiny. There was not a lot of Alicia this episode.
No.
There was a teeny tiny scene, like way back, where she was upset that Strand had to go. Like they were able to stay. I think it was within that Maddie Nick scene when Nick revealed they could stay, and she was upset that Strand had to go.
Right. So now we got back to Daniel. He's in the wine cellar with a gas can, and he's dumping gas everywhere, using a lot of it, and the dead just kind of start walking towards him, and it was like happening at the same time. Right as he was lighting the lighter, we get this cut of the dead, and they all start to turn into the people that in his past that I'm sure he has all this guilt about. Really cool scene. Really enjoyed that.
Oh, it's really well filmed.
And then he just drops that lighter, and they all go up, and as the fire is starting, Griselda walks from the back into the front, and she just kind of basks herself in the flames.
Yep.
And so shit's on fire.
Yeah.
Strand.
This shit is on fire.
Strand gets to Thomas's truck. Nick gets back from looking for Travis, and everything's on fire.
Yep.
Everything. And the first thing I'm like, how the fuck is everything on fire? So the only thing I can assume is that Daniel didn't go straight to the wine cellar. He doused a couple of places in fire, and maybe even start a couple of other fires before we watched him set the fire in the cellar.
Plus, you have to assume too, like when they showed him walking into the wine cellar, he had the gas can, but it was already dribbling.
Right.
So he like walked into the room trailing gas with him. So safe to assume that was elsewhere too. And if you've never lit gasoline, like it goes fast.
Quick,
so even if he just
even
if he just like walked in one side of the house, walked all the way to the other, and just did like one stream of fire, it wouldn't take much longer after that for stuff to catch.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And they're kind of in the desert. Everything's really dry.
Yeah.
So just saying. So yeah, you can kind of see almost the devastation in Nick's face to see everything on fire.
Yeah.
Maddie kind of runs in trying to find Daniel, sees the man knocked down, and she gives up. There's just too many flames. It's too much. She can't.
Yeah, she has to give up.
She gets Alicia, Ophelia, and they all get in the truck with Strand. Strand came back for them. He saw them, everything on fire, and he came back. Then we see Nick in the distance. Like, so they're kind of standing there, and Strand's yelling, "You got to get in the truck. Let's go." And she sees someone in the distance. And I think Strand right away thinks it's a walker or something. And he's on edge. We need to go. And she realizes that it's Nick. Oh, thank God. And she runs up to him. And he's really upset. You know, who the first thing he says was,
"What did you do? Where's Celia?"
No, first thing he said was, I couldn't find Travis.
Right, that's right.
And then it's an immediate, what did you do? Who did this? Where's Celia? And Maddie doesn't answer any of those questions.
Right.
And I think it would have helped her argument if she had said, I don't know, but we have to go. Right. Instead of just being silent, because I think that pissed Nick off even more.
Yeah, it just made her look guilty. It made her look like she did it, even though we know that she didn't have anything to do with any of that.
But she stayed silent, so he doesn't know. He knows that she had such a problem with Celia and how he was acting that would my mom go to these lengths?
Right. We don't know. We don't know.
So they're arguing back and forth. He doesn't want to go. He doesn't outright say, "No, I'm not coming with you." He doesn't move. He doesn't start going with her. And she's begging him, and he won't. He won't go forward. So Strand eventually has to come up and grab Maddie and pull her back. And Nick turns around and just there's a group of walkers kind of coming towards them, so they really need to get out of there. So Strand grabs her, and Nick just turns around and just walks away from them. They get in the truck and they start driving through this mini herd of walkers, and you just see Nick walking in the opposite direction of them as they drive right alongside of him. And he doesn't acknowledge them. He doesn't look at them. And Maddie just kind of watches through the side of the window and then through the back. And then you see Alicia watching.
Yep.
And that's the episode. That's mid-season finale.
Whoop, whoop.
And honestly, I loved that that last scene. I thought it was a beautiful shot watching Nick more at peace inside a herd of walkers than with his mom and his sister in that truck.
And I think it was interesting too, like she finally got to see firsthand. He's like, I walk through, I'm invisible. They don't see me. And she got, as much as she was like, I don't want to leave you behind. I don't want to leave you behind. You got to go. We got to go. We got to go. And I don't think she really believed that he could just walk through the walkers. Plus, she didn't see it. Here's this evidence. Strand is forcing her to go away, but here's this moment to be like, okay, he really is
Maybe
walking
he will
right
be
through
okay.
them. Might be he'll be okay. And then we had other discussion, too, about how, this is just another segment of, a mother who's had to deal with a son with an addiction.
Yep.
And Strand even said to her that,
yeah, Strand makes a really great argument kind of for him that Nick has an addiction and he can't do anything about that addiction right now. He can't feed that addiction in the way that he normally does. So he's replacing it with something else. Yeah. He's replacing it with the dead and with Celia. Yeah. And Celia put him on a pedestal, made him feel special, where his mom has always been so concerned about him and saying you don't do the right things and you shouldn't be doing this, that, and the next thing.
Critical, yeah.
Yeah, she's been very critical of him, whereas Celia was very praising of him. So it was, I think, very easy for Nick to take his addictive personality and put Celia and the dead there instead of the heroine. Yeah. And because I know I've been on the forums and on fan pages a lot, and people were upset about how easily Nick was enticed by Celia and also how easy it was for Maddie to leave Nick. And I don't think it's easy for her. I just think she has to do it so often. She's had to say goodbye to him so many times, not knowing if he would ever come back. Right. Not, which is gone for probably weeks on benders, and she has no idea if he's still alive.
Which I thought of that at the time when the scene was progressing in real time. She's like watching him in the mirrors, and then, Alicia waved to Strand. She didn't wave to her own brother. She has said the same thing as Maddie. She's had to, box away those emotions and set them aside because they have had to say goodbye to him many other times, and it's just another day where I think he's doing something that makes him want to separate from them.
And I think too that some people were upset because Maddie didn't show a physical response. She didn't fight more. Yeah. But I think that in the years of Nick's addiction, Maddie has probably showed that physical response too many times to count anymore. Yeah. And she knows it doesn't get her anywhere with him.
Exactly.
It's useless.
If he's set on this path
there's nothing she can say
that he's
do.
Addicted to, she can't, there's nothing, he has said point blank that this, by his actions alone, that there's nothing that you can offer me that this other thing can give me. Right. So.
And she knows at this point that there is nothing throwing a fit is going to do. It's not going to change her mind. The only thing it's going to do is get them killed because there's walkers heading their
way. And I, and in the same thing, I did read a lot of fan reaction that was like, how could Maddie have, how could they give up on their family so quickly? It happens on the main series too. There's that fight or flight moment, Right. I mean, when the prison was breaking up, Beth and Maggie got separated. Yep. I mean, Rick saw the baby carrier and just assumed the worst. And,
and left with Carl. Like,
he
was in no
didn't try
shape
searching around.
And Carl didn't either.
He had to make that decision. It was, and all of those situations was exactly the same idea, which is there's walkers coming, there's death, there's destruction coming. Shiva's on her way. So you had to make that choice right then and there, and you have to decide, will I have a chance to see this person again? Will we meet back up again?
Right.
Is that possible? So that's just really interesting.
Maddie just had to trust that in that moment, especially after seeing him actually moving through the walkers, that she will see him again.
He'll be okay.
That he will keep himself alive because he has always managed to.
Yeah. Yeah, really interesting. So now that we are sort of have unpacked that whole episode, man, there was a lot of details in that episode.
There was.
That we kind of want to jump into sort of a riff on the character descriptions we've done before where people are growing, but this is a little bit different.
We more so want to talk about the different groups that are now together. So our one big group is now split into a couple of other groups. So we kind of want to talk about that. So first of all, the biggest group, we've got Strand, Maddie, Ophelia, and Alicia all together.
Yeah.
Ophelia's a mess. She can't find her dad, and she has no idea where he is, if he's even alive. We don't even know if he's alive right now. We didn't see him die, but we didn't see him.
But no confirmation of anything yet. Yeah.
So Ophelia is, and they mentioned on The Talking Dead, I think she has the potential of bouncing back pretty well because she's been taking care of her parents for a while now, and then she knew that her father was she watched the spiral of him.
Yeah.
So I think she's very devastated right now, and hopefully she won't be for too long now. Coming from, we've both lost a parent, so we know that's hard.
Oh, yeah. And especially hers is more of a question mark. Is he there? Is he not?
She has no idea.
Exactly.
So hopefully in this world she'll be smart and she'll be able to at least do what needs to be done and not grieve for too long while she has to fight for her life.
And I think that group dynamic is going to be interesting because first of all, you've got Strand and Maddie who are not friends but still care about each other. This is really interesting.
It's such an interesting little relationship there.
They really have. They've sort of put something together there that's, and the thing that's great too is you immediately suck out the idea of any kind of sexual tension.
Oh, absolutely.
So once you remove that and then it's just pure friendship,
right?
Then, or at least, even if they wouldn't admit to being friends, they definitely respect each other.
Oh, they definitely respect each other. I completely agree.
So if you take those two, and Maddie has really become kind of, except where like maybe Nick is concerned, Maddie's become very no nonsense. No nonsense about anything that's going on around her. And Strand has always been that way. Not the emotional response guy. So you've got those two with Alicia, who is such a teenager with her emotions, and Ophelia, who is usually a little bit, she does wear her heart on her sleeve, but in a more mature way.
Yeah.
She's an adult woman, but still feels the same kind of emotions, but hers are more, I don't want to say she's more deep than Alicia. Alicia is still feeling
them.
Yeah.
And she does a lot of observing and just kind of being around but not being there, and she's good at that.
Yeah.
And I think, if what's going on with Daniel doesn't totally affect her too badly, I think she'd probably be one of the more calmer of everyone in this group right now.
Exactly. So I think that dynamics is going to be interesting. And also I think that I think Ophelia has within her the ability to be badass.
Too.
There's that DNA. And I think Alicia has exhibited a little bit of badassness, but I'm really interested to see, because those four together, Strand and Maddie already have shown they can be badass.
Right.
So they've got these two that could be real potential.
Well, and
you know.
Alicia has not backed down or cowered or anything away from the walkers. She will fight them.
She jumps right in.
She does a really good job with them.
Yeah.
And the rest of them do too. Ophelia was doing it, and Strand and Maddie can also. So I think that the four of them can keep each other safe.
Yeah.
And
it's a nice tight unit. I think that'll be really interesting. The only thing that'll make it, there'll be a little bit of drama here and there in terms of like, I think Maddie and Strand are going to butt heads.
I do too.
And I think, Matt, and especially Maddie's going to have a connection to Alicia, want to keep her safe, and
Become
so
Mama
that's going to color her responses and how she reacts to certain things. And they're going to feel they all, regardless of whatever, they all really respected Daniel. And I think seeing Ophelia in her way, I think they're going to, I don't want to say coddle her, but they're really going to, embrace her and try and keep her safe.
What interests me is Strand, because we have only known Strand. He's had a destination. He has had an obligation. He held an obligation to Nick and kind of to his family, and our group. And he had a destination. He needed to get to Baja. That was his goal. He no longer has that.
Yeah,
he
what
has
do you
nowhere
do?
to go. He no longer has an obligation to these people. He came back for them, which was weird. He didn't need to, but he has a respect for Maddie.
Yeah.
And I think for Alicia, too, and Ophelia. So I think we talked about this before, too, that you can't spend that amount of time with people and fight for each other and protect each other and not gain some sort of love for them.
Yeah, there's got to be a bond there, and whether he wants to admit it or not, it's there. It doesn't matter.
Right. So I think watching him moving forward in B season is going to be very interesting. Kind of almost to see a man who always had a purpose without a purpose.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So the next grouping will be our group of two, which is Travis and Chris.
Yep.
That's got the.
Oh God!
It's interesting. I foresee. I think that they are both resourceful.
Yeah.
Travis has really shown he's resourceful, but I think a lot of what's going to happen with Travis and Chris together feels more like, Chris needs to feel things and talk about things and have more emotional moments, as opposed to, he's done enough killing of the walkers. He's done enough, being a badass.
Right.
He needs to talk about how he's feeling. He needs to, deal with his demons.
And it's going to be hard to do that in an apocalypse.
True.
When do you have time to sit down in a safe place and express your feelings with your father, So it scares me, the two of them on their own. They have a knife. Did they pick up the gun again?
Don't know.
They don't have much of anything.
Yeah.
And now the ranch is burned down, so they can't go back to get anything.
Yeah.
So they are very unprepared for this journey they're about to go on. And Chris is also in a state that he needs something right now. And I don't know how Travis is going to be able to juggle that and the walkers, this death that's around him.
It's interesting. I was just thinking of this, that Travis ducked out of that room and went to look for Chris after the gun commotion with Thomas. So he doesn't know that Celia kicked them out.
No.
So as far as he's concerned, he's probably thinking, and I don't think Nick said anything.
Nick mentioned that.
Plus, Nick thought they were going to be able to stay.
Right.
He didn't know that any of that shit had gone down. So
Nick just mentioned that Maddie was hurting and that she needed Travis back.
So what's going to be interesting is, are they going to go off and have their male bonding time? And then are they going to decide to go back to the ranch, and it's going to be a big fucking hole in the ground, and he's going to have no explanation.
Right.
That leads down to our last group, which is actually a singular, which is Nick. And, Nick is at the ranch. Whether or not he stays, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be interesting to see, will Travis and Chris show back up at the ranch figuring, okay, Chris is all better now. We're going to go back to our people. And then no one's there. So it's either nothing, or it's nothing and then Nick sitting there, who knows. It's hard to say.
He's going to have an interesting journey also.
Mm-hmm.
He just lost this place and this person that was kind of filling that void for his addiction, and it's going to be interesting to see what path he takes. He can really get himself into trouble, which is scary.
I think that a lot of what Nick liked too was that I think he felt like he had a purpose and someone who obviously trusted him. Like Celia let him be himself and his mom wouldn't let that.
Right.
So I think, he loses those things, but I think he's also going to lose that sense of purpose. There's nothing, there's nothing to fight for. All my family's gone, and these people I cared about, and even these new people I cared about are now gone too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I like Chris, and I feel like that there is so much that they can do with that character. So, I am afraid on what they're going to do with his character, because he could definitely run down a very bad path.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen some people. I mean, on The Walking Dead, you see lots of groups where people immediately jump right to that animalistic element. They immediately, with no society, no rules, no nothing, how do we really act,
Right.
Are we still human?
Right.
So,
and then, there's Daniel too, and we don't know if Daniel is alive. Will Daniel cross paths with Nick somewhere?
Yeah, and what's interesting that kind of jumps right into our next topic is to talk about there's a sneak peek that they gave us on Talking Dead really quick, and all it really is you see this set of boots just walking through it looks like dirt, dust, whatever. There's not a lot of detail, and it looks like it's nighttime, and then you realize it pans up just slightly and you can see the person's carrying a bat.
Interesting. Is Negan making a guest appearance?
Yeah, a little guest appearance? No.
Although the barbed wire's not around it yet.
Yeah, exactly. So whoever it is has a bat, and then they come up to something and sort of stop, and the camera pans a little bit out, and you see that whoever this is that's walking has stopped right in front of Nick.
He's laying on the ground. He's like sleeping or something.
Yeah, and it looks like
he's still covered in blood too.
Yeah, so it's obviously probably later that same night,
maybe
when they all separate, possibly. But it's during the nighttime, so we can kind of assume it might be later that night. But anyway, so I guess there's already internet chatter and some thoughts that is that Daniel that walked up to Nick. We don't know. I mean, we know that, we figure that out. It can't be Travis, because those shoes that the guy gave him, those aren't those shoes.
No, the guy gave him some running shoes. So.
I mean, it really could be anybody.
Yeah.
It could be some mysterious character we haven't met yet.
Yep.
But right now, there's a lot of people leaning towards it being Daniel. Plus, on Talking Dead, spoilers, Gail Ann Hurd, she made the comment, which, grain of salt, and use it to what you will, that we actually didn't see Daniel die.
Right.
And to be fair, we didn't see Celia die either.
True.
So keep those thoughts in your head as we're sitting through this hiatus for the next couple of months. Will we see Daniel again? I really hope so. His character is so fantastic.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to be tricked into him being still alive. If he's alive, I want it to happen right away. And if he comes out with he's got a little bit of a facial burn, whatever. And the same thing with Celia. If she got out of that cage, tell me right away. I want to know.
Right.
I just don't want it to be strung out.
I hope we get a couple of these questions answered right away in episode 8.
Right. So that was that sneak peek for the B season premiere, which we did get a date for that, which is August 21st is when the next section of season 2 will premiere. And just so you know, until that happens, Julie and I are actually going to we're still going to have some chats. We're actually we're excited for. We're going to do a chat next week. Our we're gonna do.
Yeah, we're going to do a little bonus episode, and we're going to talk about Better Call Saul. So if you aren't a fan of Better Call Saul, haven't watched the show, you don't have to tune in and listen to us. But for those of you who did watch the last season, season 2 of Better Call Saul, we're going to do a little breakdown
just
of
like
the episode.
A little riff on the last season.
It won't be as long as our tier
These
episodes
chats.
are, but we needed something to kind of record that we could talk about for Memorial Day weekend, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And then we're going to discuss some other topics throughout the other weeks.
Yeah, moving forward, we've got we're looking at it. It looks like about if we don't include the Better Call Saul riff, we're going to do it's about 12 weeks, about a solid 3-month hiatus, and we're putting together a calendar of topics. We really want to discuss this most previous season of Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
That will probably stretch out over several episodes. Probably we won't do one episode per discussion, but we'll do some kind of format where we group at least, even if we just do season A, season B, we haven't really decided yet, but we're definitely going to be talking about that. Then we want to drill into some more Walking Dead heavy discussions involving, the comic discussion, comics versus the show.
Yeah.
Talk about some character progressions. I'm sure that we could probably set aside an entire episode just to talk about the finale.
Yeah, we'll talk about Negan and
talk about who we think's gonna die, and go through all of that stuff. So we definitely have plans coming up in the future. So keep us bookmarked.
Yeah, keep an eye out for us. We're still gonna be posting on our normal days.
Yep. So you can expect to still see, even though Fear is in its hiatus, you can still expect to see a podcast from us every week for the next couple of months leading up to the season B premiere again. Yep. And so just keep following us, folks. If you've got any questions or if you've got ideas for some future episodes for us, shoot us an email, aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. We've got everything set up on our Facebook page as well, Aim for the Head Podcast. Just search on Facebook for us. Follow us on Instagram. We get some great shots of when we're doing our recordings, and sometimes throw some silly stuff up there too. So just search for us on the Instagrams for Aim for the Head Podcast, and follow us on Twitter as well. We are at AFTH Podcast. And if you tweet at us, just so that we can give you a follow back, throw the hashtag AFTH, and we'll find you on there. Throw us a question, throw us some ideas, reach out. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
So until next week, I'm Dianna.
And I'm Julie.
And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening.